Now let's begin. President John Dramani Mahama has announced a new framework to strengthen collaboration between traditional authorities and local government in monitoring development projects across the country. President Mahama made the announcement when the Northern Regional House of Chiefs paid a courtesy call on Friday, May 15 at the presidency. President Mahama directed the Minister for Local Governments to establish a formal mechanism for traditional rulers and district assemblies to jointly review the progress of critical infrastructure projects in their communities.
Community leaders become active partners in monitoring mechanisms, monitoring implementation. We will significantly improve transparency, accountability, and quality assurance. And I'm sure that this is something we can work on together with the local administration, that is the district assemblies, that traditional rulers and district assemblies together occasionally meet to review the progress of work on development programs within your traditional areas and within the district. I'm therefore directing the Minister for Local Governments, and the Minister is here, to create a framework where traditional rulers and district assemblies can meet occasionally to review the progress of work on critical infrastructure that government is undertaking in your various traditional areas and districts. There should be regular coordination meetings, project monitoring mechanisms where the district assemblies, district chief executives, and the traditional rulers physically go to the site of development projects to review the state of work and monitor the progress. There should be designated liaison arrangements as proposed by Your Royal Majesty.
He also criticized the Agenda 111 hospitals, noting that the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, is pursuing contractors who took mobilization funds but failed to go to site.
The 111 hospitals, I don't think it was a very prudent idea to start 111 hospitals at the same time. At least they should have been phased out, but some at foundation level, even some of them, people took the mobilization and never went to site. EOCO is going after them. But what government has decided is that 35 that were almost near completion, government this year is going to put money in and continue them and complete them. And then adequate provision will be made in the next budget to clear another batch of them. But we're also inviting the faith-based organizations that run hospitals to adopt some of the hospitals that they think they can complete and bring into operation. And so that is going on.
The acting president of the Nanung traditional area and regent of Bembela, Nyelimbongu Na Andani Dasana II, speaking on behalf of the Northern Regional House of Chiefs, called for stronger and more structured partnership between traditional authorities and governments in driving national development.
Our House of Chiefs comes before you today with a fundamental different approach. We come not primarily to ask what government can do for us, but to declare what we can do for government, through government for our people. We come to offer partnership, not just to present petitions. We come to commit capacity, not just to cite challenges. We come to pledge active collaboration in development, not passive reception of interventions. Your Excellency, traditional authorities in the Northern Regional House of Chiefs represent a vast and tapped governance resource. We have legitimacy that spans centuries. We have structures that reach every village. We have trust that government sometimes struggles to learn. We have conflict resolution mechanisms that predate modern courts. We have land administration system that can facilitate or frustrate development. The question is, will government engage us as partners or continue to see us merely as ceremonial figures to be consulted occasionally and managed politically?
Education Minister Haruna Idrisu indicated that proposals under the ongoing constitutional review process could lead to an extended parliament with possible reserved seat for traditional leaders, women and the youth.
Mahama, Ghana will witness its most comprehensive constitutional, legal, and administrative review when he's done with his cabinet engagement on the propositions of the constitutional review. In fact, I'm not sure I have his permission to say it, but yesterday the president's thinking was that expand parliament, reserve seats for traditional rulers, for youth and for young people. In your words, Mr. President, you said proportional representation. That will give room for women and youth. It is part of his thought, so that an external parliament will do
now,
that.
In Geneva, Switzerland, President Mahama has announced that Ghana is on track to transition out of Gavi's vaccine funding support by 2030, with the country expected to move from being a beneficiary to becoming a donor in the not-so-distant future. Speaking at the opening of the 79th World Health Assembly, President Mahama highlighted Ghana's commitment to strengthening its health sector. He also emphasized ongoing efforts to remove financial barriers to healthcare with the aim of ensuring that quality health services are accessible to every citizen, regardless of their socio-economic status. He urged world leaders to see health spending as an investment rather than just a social obligation.
Trust Fund, also known as Mahama Cares. This fund is a lifeline for those suffering from non-communicable diseases, cardiovascular conditions, cancers, liver disease, and renal failures that were previously a death sentence for the poor. Mahama Cares is ensuring that specialized high-cost care is not a privilege for just a few, but is a right for all. Ghana, I'm also happy to report, is on track to exit Gavi funding for vaccines by the year 2030, and we hope to transition into a donor in the not-too-distant future. These domestic achievements are the foundation of my leadership of the Accra Research Initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, this assembly is set to consider a proposal for joint process to reform the global health architecture. Ghana, having co-chaired the working group for the Lusaka agenda, welcomes this. But as a committed apostle of reform of the World Health Architecture, I'm concerned about whispers I have heard that the current draft resolution seeks to protect existing organizational mandates and prohibits the recommendation of mergers or consolidations. In Mali, the Dogon people warn that do not let the sight of those eating roasted maize force you to cook your maize seeds.
Now, Vice President Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman has called on African leaders to embrace grounded discipline and people-centered leadership as a pathway to achieving sustainable economic transformation across the continent. Speaking at the 16th Oxford Africa Conference in the United Kingdom, she underscored Ghana's ongoing economic reforms aimed at promoting value addition and reducing the country's reliance on raw material exports. The Vice President also noted that her ministerial visits serve as an important mechanism for strengthening inter-ministerial coordination and enhancing effective policy implementation.
Ghana is beginning to see encouraging signs of recovery and reform. Macroeconomic indicators are improving, investor confidence is gradually returning, and institutional reforms are taking shape. But grounded leadership also means resisting the temptation to celebrate prematurely. Strong results should not produce complacency. They should deepen responsibility because transformation is a process. The foundations will be strengthening, but the work of building an inclusive and future-ready economy is only beginning. And perhaps this is the deeper lesson in this age of disruption. Leadership must be both ambitious and disciplined, and confident enough to pursue change without ever losing sight of its mandate.
Now, despite the economic gains recorded by Ghana, Professor Opoku-Agyeman urged caution against premature celebrations over the improving economic indicators, emphasizing that true progress requires discipline, inclusive and sustained transformation.
Is an approach to the office of the Vice President, in collaboration with our ministers, to organize working visits to our ministries and key institutions. These visits began by prioritizing key ministries, then those run by women, then by first-time ministers, and we are in the process of finishing our visits to all the ministries. I am proud to report that across our government, our leaders in their various capacities are doing innovative work with what they have, by highlighting the often unglamorous but critical work that these ministers, their chief directors, agencies, staff, cleaners, drivers, interns, and other essential workers are doing every day. We are trying to ensure that governance remains connected to implementation, and that leadership does not become concentrated within small circles or work in silos. Distinguished guests, even when institutions frustrate us, as they often do, we cannot afford to abandon them without serious reflection on what replaces them. They often require reform and renewal, as well as a reminder that not every disruption automatically results in progress for the majority. We need to ensure that change does not erode the principles of fairness, accountability, and continuity on which stable societies depend.
And in other news, Ghana has officially exited its IMF bailout program after completing the 3-year extended credit facility secured in 2023 during the country's economic crisis. At a media briefing in Accra on Friday, May 15, Finance Minister Dr. Kayode Atuforsen says the program helped restore macroeconomic stability, strengthen the cedi, reduce inflation, and help boost investor confidence. He indicated that the country will now transition into a new 3-year policy coordination instrument that is a non-financing IMF agreement focused on reforms, discipline, and long-term economic resilience. There's more in this report.
Officially concluded its 3-year extended credit facility program with the International Monetary Fund, IMF, bringing an end to the bailout secured in 2023 to stabilize the economy following the country's debt crisis. The program provided nearly $3 billion in financial support to aid economic recovery and debt restructuring efforts. Finance Minister Dr. Kayode Atuforsen, speaking at a press briefing in Accra, said government's fiscal reforms, expenditure controls, and debt restructuring efforts have restored macroeconomic stability, reduced inflation, and strengthened the cedi, leading to the successful completion of the program.
The government of Ghana announces the successful conclusion of its extended credit facility financial bailout program with the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. This milestone represents the restoration of macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability. Following the derailment of the IMF program as at end 2024, the government of President Mahama acted decisively to bring the program back on track and to recalibrate it by implementing a front-loaded fiscal consolidation, bold expenditure rationalization, and strong structural reforms.
Government is now transitioned to a 3-year policy coordination instrument, PCI, a non-financing IMF arrangement focused on reforms, policy discipline, and investor confidence. The IMF say the new framework is designed to sustain economic gains and help Ghana avoid future bailout cycles.
We have reached staff-level agreement on the 36-month PCI. The PCI is a non-financing engagement, meaning that the phase of Ghana's dependence on IMF financing is over. Instead, the PCI serves as a strong IMF stamp of approval, signaling to markets and developing partners that policies are sound and reforms are on track, helping to reinforce confidence and catalyze investment and support.
Under the PCI, Ghana's reforms will be reviewed twice yearly over 36 months as officials focus on stability, resilience, and long-term growth. For WTV, Ellen Frimpong.
Now, the Minister for Fisheries and Aquaculture Development, Emilia Arthur, has officially announced the implementation of the 2026 closed fishing season for Ghana's maritime fishing fleet. The directive, issued under Section 47 of the Fisheries and Aquaculture Act 2025, Act 1146, forms part of government's efforts to conserve marine resources, boost fish stocks, and strengthen national food security. According to the ministry, industrial trawlers will observe a 2-month fishing ban from July 1st to August 31st, 2026. Semi-industrial or inshore vessels will also suspend operation for 1 month from July 1st to 31st, 2026. Meanwhile, marine canoe fisheries using outboard motors have been exempted from the closure to protect local livelihoods. Now, away from that, the National Democratic Congress has launched activities marking this year's NDC month with a renewed call for accountability, patriotism, and people-centered governance. At a media engagement themed May 15, the precursor for the June 4th uprising, the party said the commemorative period will also reconnect younger members to the values and historical struggles that shaped the NDC tradition.
Secretary of the National Democratic Congress, Fifi Fiavikwete, has launched this year's NDC month celebrations with a call on party members and public officials to uphold the values of sacrifice, honesty, and accountability. Speaking at a media engagement under the theme May 15, the precursor of the June 4 uprising, Mr. Kwete said the ideals of the June 4 revolution remain relevant to Ghana's democratic and governance process.
The most significant thing that happened, that captured not just the imagination of all the people of Ghana, but singled out Jerry Rawlings as the man that truly had a deep aspiration for the people of Ghana, was when before his accusers, when he was being court-martialed, he had the courage, the honor, the capacity, even when facing death. We declare the words that will forever be unforgettable. Let my people go. I alone am responsible. Now that capacity for sacrifice, that capacity for personal responsibility, that ability to be honest and be courageous are the very values on which this great political party is founded.
He urged younger members of the party to understand the history and ideological foundations of the NDC, warning against using political power for personal gain.
No matter what position we find ourselves, we must never lose sight of the fact that this great movement should never be a movement for individual aggrandizement, accumulation of personal power, wanting to have everything so that we can control the party or control individuals. But always remember that we are stewards of power in order to be able to ensure the empowerment of the true people of Ghana.
The NDC month celebrations will feature lectures, commemorative events, and public engagements across the country, leading up to June 22nd, the birthday anniversary of former President Jerry John Rawlings. For WTV, Ellen Frimpong.
Time now for some international news. The World Health Organization has declared an Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo a public health emergency of international concern. The agency said the outbreak in DR Congo's eastern Ituri province, which has seen about 246 suspected cases and 80 deaths reported, does not meet the criteria of a pandemic emergency. but it warned that it could potentially be a much larger outbreak than what is currently being detected and reported, with significant risk of local and regional spread. The current strain of Ebola is caused by the Bundibugyo virus, the health agency said, for which there are no approved drugs or vaccines. Early symptoms include fever, muscle pain, fatigue, headache, and sore throat, and are followed by vomiting, diarrhea, a rash, and bleeding. The WHO said there are now 8 laboratory-confirmed cases of the virus, with other suspected cases and deaths across 3 health zones, including Bunia, the capital of Ituri province, and the mining towns of Mongualu and Warampa. And this brings us to the end of the WTV Report. Many thanks for staying with us. I am Karen Naoyukwoti.